Hello and welcome to Camp Xtras. Today we end my saga of playing every Spider-Man PSP game with Spider-Man Web of Shadows Amazing Allies Edition. It's a weird port of a console game that is nothing like the original. Today I'm going to give you some history on this one, its lasting impact, as well as my opinions on it. All footage was captured off of a PSP, and let's go ahead and hop into its history.
So help me.
After the multiple releases of Spider-Man in 2007, it was time for a new year and a new Spider-Man game. In early 2008, Spider-Man Web of Shadows was announced, developed by Shaba Games. Along with this announcement was a website under sidescroller.com where people at the New York Comic-Con could audition for roles in the game. One thing that was really hard when I was doing research for this game was the lack of development news and info on the Amazing Allies Edition. See, in 2008, the PSP version of this game was meant to be completely different from the modern console version due to limited hardware. At some point, it was announced as the Amazing Allies Edition and was under development by Amaze Entertainment. This PSP version would be the same on the PS2. There just isn't a lot of news or talk about this version in promotions for this game. It almost feels like they were trying to hide that this version was basically a completely different game. Maybe it's just the age of the websites I'm trying to research, but it seemed like things just went smoothly and this version released alongside the console version on October 21st, 2008 in North America and saw European and Australian releases later that month. Personally, I've never touched any version of this game, and I've only seen videos and screenshots, so I went into this one knowing it was a different experience, and I wanted to try this out as its own thing. So let me tell you how I felt about it, starting with the plot.
What, is that it? You tired? Maybe you should take a nap.
Maybe you should shut up.
That was weak.
Web of Shadows starts oddly, with Spider-Man just being dropped right into the plot. You start out just saving people in the city, no big start, and then it's revealed by Nick Fury that symbiotes are ravaging the city and you must stop them. Along the way, you run into a ton of villains, including Kraven, which I'm now realizing how often he shows up in these Spider-Man games. You also get access to the black suit in this game, which determines your choices. This game is all about being good or evil, and you talk to tons of people as you go along, and you get points towards good or evil depending on your choices. The moral system was one that I wasn't expecting, but I do like it in terms of story. It offers something fresh for a Spider-Man game, which is always appreciated. And this also features a ton of written dialogue. There are cutscenes and voice work, but most events have to be read, which I think is fine. I think it kills the pacing of gameplay, but in terms of story, it's okay. I actually didn't mind this plot. It's not riveting, but has superhero charm. I won't say the dialogue is incredible, but it's fine enough to read. It actually gives this game kind of a comic book feel, and I thought the story was pretty decent overall.
And away we go!
Web of Shadows does not go for the open world of the last PSP Spidey game, nor does it go for the open world of its console counterparts. Something that really upset PS2 users when this was ported over, but as a PSP player right now, I think making it a 2D side-scroller isn't a bad choice. If you've been playing these back-to-back like me, this felt fresh and like a jumping-off point from the GBA titles. It's good as an idea, but I wouldn't say it works that well. First off, jumping is stiff. It feels a bit odd hopping around, which 2D platformers need a good jump. Movement overall feels fine and the wall climbing is good, and that's mainly what you'll be doing. Many of these levels take place within a series of buildings, and I'll have you crawling all around. The level design is pretty good, if not basic. It's what you would expect of many rooms just layered on top of each other, and then you just go around and beat up enemies. But the combat is a little rough. There are combos and you flow between enemies, which feels fine, but there tends to be some hit detection issues where hits just don't land. This, with jumping, makes this game feel rushed. Many elements feel okay, but then it'll have some buggy issues. Actually, bugs are very common in this game, and I had a moment where I was stuck under a train and I had to restart the whole level. This wasn't the only time I had my game soft lock, and that's always a miserable feeling. Not only that, but every character has loads and loads of dialogue to pummel through. It's timed poorly, and you'll be in the middle of these big action set pieces, and then all of a sudden, you have to trudge through slow reads and then get back to action. It feels awkward and it kills pacing at some point. I do like that the evil and good options give you upgrade points that level up both your skills as the black suit and red suit. I like that morals don't just reflect on the plot, but on who you are. It's a nice touch, and I like the quick swap between them. You need the black suit in particular to break through walls, and it shapes the level. I'll say it's linear, but I do like the feel of it. One half-baked element is the allies. You get a selection of cards that will do anything, like boost attack, defense, or maybe call in a villain like Stiltman to help you fight enemies. It's oddly controlled where you have to stop, hold left trigger, and scroll through to select items. And if you want to use it in the boss fight, good luck. It's hard to find a good time to just stop and select one. On top of that, I just never felt like the game was hard enough to actually have these assist you in any good way, and it just kind of fades in the background. The whole game just feels passable, but in the lowest sense possible. I played it, had a little fun, but the issues were glaring. It's poorly paced, buggy, and the controls are not perfect. It's not awful, but it's something that when you dig into, you realize how much better the gameplay could have been here.
You're like a human joy buzzer. Oh, but thanks, by the way, for not being a human whoopee cushion.
The audio isn't passable like the gameplay, it's downright rough. The sounds of the city are screeching loud compared to the voices and everything else. The mixing of the audio here is rough, and every sound effect feels crunched down. Spidey constantly grunts and fights, and not only is it tiring, but the quality on it is brutal. Also, the mixing of voice lines into the sound is pretty awful. The audio quiets down when people talk, and it's odd because you want to hear people talk. There's a lot of issues that could have been fixed just by properly mixing the audio so everything blended well. It just sounds like a mess. The voice acting is okay from everyone except Spider-Man. Spider-Man is miserable. It could be the voice actor being annoying, but I think it's just the rough writing. Spidey is supposed to be quippy, but this is downright bad to sit through. It doesn't help that it isn't delivered well, and it has a grating poor quality, and it's just all around a bad audio package. The visuals are at least decent. In this city, the levels are bright, but the environments are just okay. It's places you've seen before, and when you get to places like the sewers, it just feels uncreative, and its layouts and looks are just simple. Though these levels have bigger issues of just being a little too dark and muddy, things blend together and are tough to see. The character models are fun, and I like Spider-Man, but a dark look for some levels kinda kills the mood. I wanted to like this game more than I did. I was interested in a side-scrolling platformer on the PSP. Make it Spider-Man and I think you could have something solid. But this is rough. Muddy graphics, bad visuals, buggy gameplay, and only a decent story to support it. The moral system helps it out, and I think it has some fun moments, but it's far too big of a mess to enjoy. On my PSP ranking list, this one enters in at number 6. I think Friend or Foe is harder to play because it is uninspired, but Spider-Man 2 has much more of an entertainment factor. If I were to rank all the Spider-Man games, that would mean Spider-Man 3 would go on top. I think it's the most creative of the bunch, and it pushes the console in unique ways. Web of Shadows on the PSP doesn't even have a Metacritic score that I can give you because it has so little reviews. It got 1.8 from Cheat Code Central, calling it quick but great fun. IGN gave it a 7, saying it reminded them of classic Spider-Man games, and Gamerzone gave it the same score, saying it had some issues, but it was overall fun. So I'd say the average was kinda positive. Overall though, the release of Web of Shadows was weak, getting average review scores across the board and ended the reign of Spider-Man on the PSP. Of course though, this wouldn't be the end of Spider-Man games. After a year break, we would get the amazing Shattered Dimensions. That started the era when Beenox took the web slinger and truly made him their own. Yet this is the end of that weird era in Spider-Man gaming history where the franchise just kinda was passed around to a ton of different developers. If you look at the backlog reviews, you will find an abysmal average of 1.8 out of 5. But this accounts for the PS2 version as well, which you'll find in the reviews is the most common one played. The criticism that you find a lot is that the PS2 version is nothing like the other modern console versions, and it's a failure because of that. And I can understand that pain, but looking at it from the portable end, I do understand why it's different on the PSP, though it's still a weak game in my eyes. But that wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed this review, please leave a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm. Subscribe to keep up with more content like this, and be sure to check out my main channel, Camp Xbox. And I'll see you here next time at Camp Xtras.